Aaron Jones is staying in Minnesota a little bit longer for now, as the team makes their first big offseason move to precede a busy spring of moves, with Kevin O'Connell speaking on Jones himself while other teams would love to poach the stud running back. We're going to be breaking down all of that in this episode of Vikings Digest, but first, if you're part of the nearly 93% of viewers that aren't subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's completely free, and that bell icon so you don't miss any of the new updates when they drop. And with that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is Aaron Jones' void date has been moved. So we see here from Field Yates from yesterday saying that the Vikings and running back Aaron Jones agreed to move the void date on his contract from this Monday, tomorrow, until the final day before free agency. If Jones had not been extended by Monday, the team would have taken on $3.2 million in dead money in 2025. This expands the window for Jones and Minnesota to continue to negotiate a new deal that would avoid the amount hitting the cap in full for 2025. It doesn't guarantee that a new deal will be reached, but it buys time for both sides if there is interest in hammering one out before free agency. And speaking of that interest, Kevin Seifert from ESPN also followed up on that, saying Kevin O'Connell said last week that he hopes to get Aaron Jones back in 2025. Could be more of a committee style role after Jones set a career high in carries in 2024. And I like the committee style role here for Aaron Jones because he is getting a bit older, and we're getting into a league where 1-2 punches and knockout tandems for running backs is going to become a very popular thing, very much popularized by the Detroit Lions with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. So it makes sense for Minnesota to want to hamper that down, not only to compete with these teams, but to also make sure that Aaron Jones can stay healthy, because as evident last season, yes, he played every game, but he was battling through some injuries throughout the entirety of the season almost to make sure that he was able to play in all those games. And knowing that Aaron Jones isn't necessarily a 20-plus touch running back, you want to make sure that you have some insurance to make sure he doesn't wear down, where even when he was getting 16 to 18 touches a game, he was still wearing down a little bit and getting banged up slightly, not to the extent where he was missing games, but to the extent where he was questionable throughout most of the practice weeks of this season, but he was ultimately ready to go by the end of those weeks. But that's the thing, is you want to make sure that that's not even a concern for your team, and make sure that you have the insurance to make sure that he can stay healthy throughout the whole season and not have to worry about these even being a problem in the first place. And then as well, with him being moved on, that with the void date being moved as well, that's $3.2 million, where yeah, a lot of teams probably it's not too much for them, but for Minnesota heading into an offseason where the possibility of signing Sam Darnold, as much as I don't like it, is very much on the table for Minnesota. So if that's the case, they want to get that extra 3.2 to sign as many guys as they possibly can, and so that they're not just having dead space. Just in general, you wouldn't want to have $3.2 million that you're just losing out on. It's not like teams can just afford to lose that, Minnesota especially, because of all the moves that we're going to have to make. Darnold not included, you still have an entire secondary to re-sign. You want to go out and get some pass rushers, one of which that we're going to be covering in our next video that you won't want to miss as well. That's going to be very exciting. And there's also the deal of offensive line as well. Many viewers and as well as us ourselves have said that offensive line is the biggest thing for Minnesota this offseason to make sure that you can bolster it down, whether it's JJ McCarthy under center, Sam Darnold, Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, or anyone else at quarterback. You want to make sure that they are protected. And if you have that extra 3.2 kicking around that isn't just sitting dead, that's great to go towards signing one of those guys. But the thing with Aaron Jones as well, Kevin O'Connell was on Fantasy Sports Radio on SiriusXM the other day as well, saying we loved having Aaron Jones. For the better part of his career, he had kind of been a part of a backfield committee, and for the most part, it was Aaron Jones as the featured back. Played 17 games, he was able to be durable, over 1,500 all-purpose yards for us, catching the ball out of the backfield, running at an elite level. So I would love to have Aaron back. Then I think we just continue to grow in that room, whether it's infusing a young player in the draft or maybe another player in free agency alongside Aaron Jones. Hopefully, I think we'll continue to grow, and our run game will continue to grow and being a complete offense, which is very important. So there's a few things here that KOC is saying that I think are very telling as to A, how the Vikings are going to approach free agency, and B, how they're going to approach the draft, because he's saying here that they definitely want to try and probably have a committee with Aaron Jones, where as great as it was that he was the featured back for Minnesota this season, there still is some things where you want to make sure that he can go for the entirety of the season and not have to worry about that. Whether it's making sure that he can play every game, making sure that he stays healthy throughout the entirety of the week, or that you have that complimentary 1-2 knockout punch that a lot of teams are going to try to have to try and replicate what they're doing in Detroit, with Sonic and Knuckles, as a lot of people are calling him. So with this as well, Minnesota, they're going to be looking at a running back in free agency or the draft. It's very, very much written on the wall at this point, where, yeah, Kevin O'Connell's saying, as great as it was that Aaron Jones had a phenomenal season for us, we want to keep having him back. We want to have him back for this year. And Aaron Jones himself has said that he stated his desire to finish his career with the Vikings. And the guess here is that the teams will explore an extension. The one-year deal he signed with Minnesota last year included 4 void years, meaning the team could actually create additional salary cap savings for 2025 by restructuring that original contract or agreeing to an extension. And I really like that they could get some extra savings for 2025 because, unfortunately, if it's to go get Sam Darnold, you have some extra money there. If it's to go get Trey Smith, you have some extra money there. If it's to go re-sign Byron Murphy or Cam Bynum, you do have some extra money there. So Minnesota might be able to open themselves up to a little bit more freedom for this. And the Vikings will have projected $58 million or $61 million. There's a few different reports coming out to spend during the offseason. But some of that space, potentially up to $40 million, could be going towards retaining Sam Darnold. The Vikings also could have another expensive quarterback. Jones' value is expected at $5.6 million annually. They offered another one-year contract as an example of what Jones may command in free agency. He has $41.6 million in career earnings. So yes, he's earned himself a lot over his career. 5.6 isn't too crazy considering what even running backs like James Cook is wanting with $15 million a year. So Aaron Jones is in a very cap-friendly situation here, especially for Minnesota, where they want to be able to move some things around. And if it is they're going to re-sign Sam Darnold, I don't know exactly what to make of that, just because as much as I would like to have Sam Darnold back to see what he can do and see if there is maybe more to it, ultimately, I think we did see as far as Sam will be able to take us, and I think it is time to move on, not only for that reason as far as winning, but also because JJ McCarthy and everything that we have going for us and how we made a lot of the signings that we made before Sam Darnold got there with the knowledge that we were going to have JJ McCarthy for the future. Aaron Jones was a part of that. They brought him in on a one-year cheap deal so that they could have JJ McCarthy potentially playing with them, and then Sam Darnold stepped into the picture. But now, if you go out and re-sign Aaron Jones, you let Sam Darnold walk, you're for sure signing Aaron Jones at that point. Then you have Aaron Jones and another complimentary back to go with JJ McCarthy or Daniel Jones, or maybe even Sam Darnold again as well. Hopefully not, just because of how much it's going to cost. I know we're a broken record with that on this show, but I personally can't say it enough that signing Sam Darnold, you're going to have Kirk Cousins 2.0. And you won't be able to keep Aaron Jones around for as long as you want to, or for him to potentially finish his career in Minnesota. And the other thing to consider, Ty Chandler is the only running back under contract next season for Minnesota, and while he only rushed for 182 yards and no touchdowns on 56 carries last season, he was far more effective in 2023, rushing for 461 yards, 3 scores, and a yards per carry average of 4.5. So yes, Ty Chandler isn't exactly the RB1 that Minnesota will need, but he is a very nice complimentary RB3 or borderline RB2 if he is given enough blocking or has an explosive lane to run through. But the thing is here, obviously, we're not focusing on Ty Chandler being our RB1 for next year. We would love to have Aaron Jones be our RB1 next season. But the other thing that we're going to have to watch out for, though, is with a down year, Aaron Jones is easily the biggest fish on the market for his position at running back with the free agency market being down. He's been a great all-around back who fits well in the passing game. The Raiders will likely be dealing with a rookie quarterback or uncertainty there, so they'll want to have the best option available to carry the load if needed. Jones also just turned 30, so he'll be looking for a multi-year deal for the highest pay he can get, and the Raiders had the second most cap space available. So yes, the Raiders absolutely are in a situation here where they could back up the Brinks truck and just give Aaron Jones the biggest contract available on the market. However, Raiders, Vikings, a lot different cultures. Aaron Jones already stated he wants to finish his career in Minnesota, so we have that going for us. The Raiders and the Bears have also been the two teams that have been reported the most as to who could get Aaron Jones if Minnesota doesn't sign him. What I love about them doing this void contract thing is that you make sure that Aaron Jones is there at least until the end of free agency. You don't take any dead cap on, and you can kind of negotiate with that. Obviously, that's what we just touched on, where that's fantastic. But with that, it delays the process of teams like the Bears and the Raiders trying to get into the ear of Aaron Jones, into the ear of Minnesota with offers, and trying to swoop him and poach him away from us. We don't want that, obviously. The Raiders, he might be a good fit there. We don't want him leaving Minnesota. And as much as we've said how his age is a factor in his injury history, he still was very efficient last season. And I think if he has a solid running back to go with him that isn't just an RB2, that would be an RB2 on every other team. No, we want to go and get a RB1B, a guy who would be a RB1 on any other team that wasn't Minnesota, just like you see in Detroit. I know I keep making that comparison, but they are the blueprint, unfortunately, for this. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, those guys would be RB1s in any team they went to if it wasn't the Lions. But on their own team, they're RB1 and A. That's where Minnesota is at, or wants to be at for this as well. Yes, you want Aaron Jones to be your RB1, but you want him to be the RB1A and have a reliable 1B2. Because if you don't have that, you're screwed. We see that with the Eagles, where everyone talks about how great Saquon was. Their run game was amazing. If Saquon was taken out for the season, they would have been screwed because Kenneth Gainwell isn't that RB1. People were saying how they have such a dynamic run game, one of the best duos. Kenneth Gainwell was riding Saquon's coattails the whole season. So if they had lost Saquon, they wouldn't have had an RB1. Minnesota, they were in that situation with Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison. When Dalvin Cook wasn't RB1, Alexander Mattison could not carry the load because he is just an RB2. And then we saw that on full display for an entire season when Dalvin Cook left and we handed the keys to RB1 over to Alexander Mattison, and it worked out disastrously. So yes, Minnesota, they are now learning from that, saying, hey, we can't succeed in this league unless we have a reliable RB1. And if we have an RB1 who is a little bit older, a little bit banged up, and can't necessarily have the longevity for a full season that we would like and 20 touches a game, let's go out and get a guy who can be an RB1B and can work in tandem with him, take a bit of the weight off of him, but not overshine him, but still be something that teams have to game plan and fear for. But with all of this being said, what do you guys think about this? What do you guys think about Aaron Jones staying around until the start of free agency, or until the next season officially turns over? But do you guys think that we are going to re-sign him? Would you re-sign him? If so, what would be the deal that you would give him to make sure that he doesn't go to any other team but Minnesota? Let us know what you guys have to say down in the comments below. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell icon so you don't miss the next video when it drops. We're going to be dropping that tomorrow. But with that, I've been your host, Griffen. Take care.